The other day, a local chef emailed me to ask if I had time to finish a bunch of very large cutting boards. He had his assistant drop them off, and boy, they weren't kidding when they said very large. Ugh.
Size matters not.
Fortunately, the process of finishing a cutting board is exactly the same whether you have a little 10 by 12 vegetable size cutting board or a massive 38 by 22 professional grade cutting board. So today we're going to get started and I will show you all of the steps needed so you can finish your cutting boards and make them look as pretty as the day that you bought it.
Start by inspecting the damage. Knife marks and stains on the working surfaces are obvious, but check the bottom and the edges too. They get dinged and chipped just like anything else. Unless the damage to the edges is awful, I start sanding the top because sanding that mess often also takes care of those minor edge defects. On normal size boards, my 5-inch Bosch with 80 grit sandpaper is up to the task, but these boards had some serious damage, so I started at 60 grit paper.
So last night, I got through one grit of one side of one of these end grain cutting boards in about an hour and a half, which is not nearly fast enough. So I think that I'm going to have to make a long-awaited shop upgrade to my equipment to get this job done in a reasonable amount of time. So I'm going to take a pause here. I'm going to run out to the store, and I will be back with a bit more power in my hand and see if we can't start getting through some of these cutting boards in a much more reasonable time frame.
Yep. I upgraded to a 6-inch sander, and man alive, what a difference this thing makes. I also bought an abrasive cleaning stick because these boards are so well oiled that they're gumming up all my sandpaper. With more power in hand, I faced the long dark of this 60 grit sandpaper step. The trick to sanding is consistency. If you linger or stop or return often to the damaged areas, you'll create dips and divots that require even more work to sand out. If there's still knife marks to remove after a pass over the entire surface, go back and sand the entire board again. Giving in to temptation and focusing on one specific damage area makes more work in the long run, or worse, means that you'll deliver an uneven, unflat product. Take your time with this first grit, using long, slow passes, and remove all the damage that you can. Scratches, scores, stains, whatever. Don't rush it. If an imperfection isn't gone by the time you finish this lowest grit, it probably won't go away with the higher ones. On a normal size board, this first grit might take 15 or 20 minutes. On these gargantuan boards, it was over an hour. A piece. I got through a lot of History That Doesn't Suck podcasts on this project. But once the lowest grit is done, things speed up a bit. I follow an overlapping pattern. I go horizontal, then vertical, then diagonal in both directions, and finally finish horizontal again. As long as I take my time, it's almost impossible to miss a spot with this method. After 120 grit, I fix any remaining edge damage. First, I recreated the roundovers that were on all of the boards because the old roundovers had largely disappeared as I sanded. This rounding removed a lot of the edge damage, so I didn't actually have much else to do on most of the boards. On 2 of them, however, the damage was quite significant, so I used my track saw to just nip off the end of the board and remove these chip outs. No one will ever notice the length change. Then, more sanding. 150 grit this time, stopping to hand sand those roundovers in order to maintain them. Vacuum between these coats to make sure that no lingering dust scratches up the surface. I also water pop here for the first time to raise the grain and make sure the board stays smooth while applying finish later. Then I sand to 220, water pop again for the final coat.
20 hours is the most I think I've ever sanded for a project. It took so long to get these nice, but I'll be honest, they came out real nice. We're going to spend some time today detailing them, wiping them up, getting all the residual sawdust off. We're going to get mineral oil on it, then butcher block conditioner, and then we're ready to get them out of my shop and back to the client so I can start working on some other stuff. It's always good to be finishing up a project a couple days early.
I used my gloved hand to push the oil around so I wouldn't waste as much by soaking it up with a rag, which worked really well and might be my new go-to method. Finish with a couple coats of butcher block conditioner, which is beeswax and mineral oil. I use Howard's because that's what my local hardware store has, but whatever is available in your local area is probably fine. Once the wax is dry, buff it real good to clean up any residue and give the boards that beautiful, like-new sheen. Refinishing boards isn't a big part of my business, nor do I want it to be, but it's a great way to keep in touch with existing clients or let new clients get a taste of the quality of my work. And boy, was it a lot of work to refinish 8 of the largest cutting boards that I've ever seen. But I got it done, and they look absolutely stunning. And if you've got a sander, some oil, and an hour or 2 of time, then you can make your boards at home look just as gorgeous.